March 17, 1943, found the North Atlantic in a tumultuous state, approximately 400 miles south of Iceland, where convoy HX-2229 valiantly navigated through formidable 15-foot ocean swells. This vital procession comprised 41 merchant ships, collectively laden with a staggering 140,000 tons of essential cargo, all destined for the beleaguered shores of Great Britain. Aboard the SS William Eustace, a Liberty ship battling the violent pitching and rolling of the sea, 28-year-old ship's cook, Tommy Lawson, diligently attended to his dishwashing duties in the galley. Meanwhile, on the bridge, high above, Captain James Bannerman meticulously scanned the vast horizon with his binoculars, acutely aware of the imminent danger that lurked beneath the waves. He knew with a chilling certainty that German U-boats were present, stealthily listening for their prey. Below the tumultuous surface, a mere 600 yards from the convoy's port beam, Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Mansack commanded U-758 from its control room. His hydrophone operator, a young German sailor, pressed headphones to his ears, his concentration absolute. A hushed whisper broke the silence. "Contact! Bearing 280. Multiple screws. Heavy machinery noise. Estimate 40 vessels." A grim smile creased Mansack's face. The U-boat Wolfpack, a coordinated group of submarines, was now perfectly positioned to target the unsuspecting convoy. What remained unknown to all involved, Captain Bannerman, Captain Lieutenant Mansack, and indeed every sailor on both sides of the conflict, was that Tommy Lawson had discerned a peculiar characteristic in the underwater acoustic signature of Liberty ships. This seemingly insignificant observation was poised to fundamentally alter the course of the entire Battle of the Atlantic. Over the ensuing 6 harrowing days, the North Atlantic would claim 22 merchant vessels from convoys HX-2229 and SC-122, dragging approximately 300 merchant seamen to their watery graves. This tragic event marked the most devastating convoy disaster since 1942, prompting Admiral Karl Dönitz, the formidable commander of Germany's U-boat fleet, to declare it the greatest convoy battle of all time. The raw statistics painted a grim and devastating picture. In March 1943 alone, German U-boats succeeded in sinking a colossal 567,000 tons of Allied shipping, a figure that surpassed losses in any previous month of the war. At the prevailing rate of destruction, Great Britain faced a dire reality. It possessed a mere 3 months' supply of food remaining. Prime Minister Winston Churchill would later articulate the profound dread that gripped him during this period, famously writing, "The only thing that really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril." We implore you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be immensely grateful for your like and subscription. Please also consider leaving a comment below, sharing where you are from and what your thoughts are on this critical historical topic. The efficacy of German hydrophone technology was brutally effective, providing U-boats with a distinct tactical advantage. These submerged predators could detect the telltale propeller noise of a convoy from an astonishing 80 nautical miles away, while individual merchant ships inadvertently betrayed their positions from distances of up to 12 miles. The unique acoustic signature, characterized by the distinct sounds of cavitating propellers, engine vibrations, and hull resonance, acted as an unmistakable beacon, guiding German torpedoes with deadly precision. Allied escort vessels employed every conceivable countermeasure, elaborate zigzag patterns to confuse U-boats, strict radio silence to prevent detection, and routine ASDIC sweeps to locate submerged threats. Yet, none of these tactics proved consistently effective. The convoys were simply too acoustically prominent. The vast ocean acted as an efficient conduit for sound, carrying their presence for miles. Consequently, U-boats operating in disciplined wolf packs could simply descend to a silent depth of 400 feet, patiently listening with their sensitive hydrophones, awaiting the opportune moment for a devastating attack. What the Allied command remained tragically unaware of was that the ultimate solution to this critical dilemma would not originate from the sophisticated mind of a naval engineer or an acoustic scientist, but rather from a humble merchant ship cook who had left school at the tender age of 14. At Naval Headquarters in Liverpool, England, the Western Approaches Command in March 1943 had been locked in a relentless struggle against U-boats for 3.5 arduous years, having exhausted every known strategy. In 1941, the Royal Navy had equipped every escort vessel with ASDIC sonar. While this active sonar system could indeed detect submerged U-boats at a range of 2,500 yards, its effectiveness was limited to instances where the submarine was directly ahead. German U-boat commanders quickly adapted, learning to launch their attacks from the stern or the beam, thereby remaining outside the restrictive ASDIC cone of detection. Compounding this challenge, ASDIC proved utterly useless against surfaced U-boats, attacking under the cover of night, precisely the favored tactic of the menacing wolf packs. By 1942, scientists at the Admiralty Research Laboratory had made a significant breakthrough with the development of high-frequency direction finding, or HFDUF. This innovative technology proved remarkably effective in tracking U-boat radio transmissions, brilliantly locating submarines that broke radio silence. However, once a wolf pack established contact with a convoy, they would cease all transmissions, preferring to simply listen. Ironically, Allied ships continued to broadcast their precise locations with every rotation of their propellers. By early 1943, the Royal Navy had invested a substantial $8.7 million, an amount equivalent to $560 million in today's currency, in a desperate attempt to resolve the persistent acoustic signature problem. Professor Patrick Blackett, the Distinguished Director of Naval Operational Research, authored a classified paper that starkly concluded, merchant vessel propeller cavitation and machinery resonance create underwater sound profiles detectable at extreme range. Without fundamental hull redesign, impossible during wartime production, convoys will continue to announce their positions to enemy hydrophones. The expert consensus was unequivocally clear. It was deemed impossible to render a merchant ship sufficiently quiet to evade hydrophone detection. Dr. Harold Burris, the Admiralty's chief naval architect, meticulously elucidated the underlying physics in a memo dated February 14, 1943. A Liberty ship's propeller, he explained, rotated at 76 RPM under load, displacing an immense 2,025 tons of water through its 15-foot diameter blades. The resultant cavitation bubbles, which incessantly formed and collapsed on the blade surfaces, generated broadband acoustic energy spanning frequencies from 1/100 kilohertz. German hydrophones were, by design, optimized to detect precisely this frequency range. Reducing propeller noise, Burris asserted, would necessitate a complete overhaul of the propulsion system, requiring 6 months of dry dock time per vessel, along with manufacturing capabilities that simply did not exist during wartime. The stakes could not have been higher. Britain's very survival depended on maritime trade, importing 2/3 of its food and a full 100% of its petroleum by sea. In March 1943, German U-boats were sinking Allied ships at a rate faster than Allied shipyards could construct them. For 3 consecutive months, the gross tonnage lost had tragically exceeded the gross tonnage launched. At the Atlantic Convoy Conference, convened in London on March 4, 1943, Rear Admiral Leonard Murray, the resolute commander of the Royal Canadian Navy's Atlantic forces, delivered a brutally honest assessment. "Gentlemen, we're losing. Our escorts can't hear the U-boats because of our own convoy noise. The enemy can hear us from 50 miles away. Unless we solve the acoustic detection problem, we'll lose the Atlantic by summer." Various proposals emerged. Each met with its own set of insurmountable challenges. A British naval engineer suggested installing elaborate sound-dampening mounts on every piece of machinery aboard every merchant ship. The estimated cost for this endeavor was a staggering $250,000 per vessel, requiring 12 weeks of precious dry dock time. With 2,400 merchant ships operating within the Atlantic convoy system, this monumental task would consume an estimated 138 years to retrofit the entire fleet. An American scientist put forward the idea of coating ship hulls with rubber to absorb sound. This concept was tested and subsequently rejected. The rubber degraded rapidly in salt water within weeks, created massive drag, and consequently reduced ship speed by 3 knots, rendering convoys even more susceptible to attack. A Canadian engineer proposed redesigning propellers with swept-back blades to mitigate cavitation. While an excellent theoretical idea, it was deemed completely unfeasible, requiring the retooling of every propeller foundry in North America and the scrapping of 14,000 existing propellers. By March 15, 1943, Allied naval commanders had reluctantly accepted the grim reality. There appeared to be no viable technological solution to the inherent acoustic signatures of convoys. Merchant ships, it seemed, would continue to unwittingly broadcast their positions to every U-boat within hearing range. The only remaining strategy was to augment the number of escorts, increase air cover, and fervently hope that a sufficient number of ships would manage to survive, thereby keeping Britain in the war. However, 800 miles to the west, aboard a Liberty ship valiantly battling through a ferocious North Atlantic gale, an unassuming cook was on the verge of proving every expert unequivocally wrong. Thomas Patrick Lawson possessed no engineering degree, nor indeed any degree at all. Born in South Boston, Massachusetts in 1915, Tommy Lawson had left school at the tender age of 14 to contribute to his family's survival during the Great Depression. His early career included working as a line cook at a bustling diner, followed by a stint as a galley hand on coastal freighters. When war erupted, he joined the U.S. Merchant Marine at 26, not driven by a desire for heroism, but by the practical necessity of earning $125 a month, a sum triple what he had made in Boston. His captain's evaluation from June 1942 offered a rather modest assessment. Lawson TP, ship's cook, adequate performance, no leadership potential, recommended for galley duties only. Certainly, no one anticipated a stroke of genius from the individual responsible for preparing breakfast. After the William Eustace had successfully completed 3 perilous convoy runs to Liverpool, Lawson developed a peculiar habit. During his off-watch hours, he would often be found in the engine room, simply listening. His shipmates considered him eccentric, even foolish. "Tommy's going to get himself killed down there," remarked First Mate Robert Chen. "That engine room is hot as hell and twice as loud." Yet, Lawson was not drawn by the oppressive heat. He was there because he had noticed something profound. On February 19, 1943, in the unforgiving mid-Atlantic, the William Eustis was part of Convoy SC-18, comprising 63 ships arranged in 9 columns. Lawson was in the engine room during a U-boat alert. Crouched near the main steam line, he was shouted at by the ship's engineer, a gruff Scotsman named Donald MacLeod, who yelled, over the deafening roar of the turbines, "Get back to your galley, cook. This is no place for—" At that precise moment, the ship shuddered violently. A torpedo had struck a vessel just 2 columns over. Through the very hull of his own ship, Lawson heard it. Not the immediate explosion, but what followed, the distinctive, strange, hollow, booming sound of water rushing into the dying ship's hull. And then, an abrupt silence. The U-boats could no longer detect it. Lawson instinctively grabbed MacLeod's arm. The sinking ship. It stopped making noise. "Of course it stopped," MacLeod retorted, his voice rising above the din. "It's full of water." "No, I mean—" Lawson struggled to articulate his nascent theory. "When water floods the hull, it stops the machinery vibration. The U-boat can't hear it anymore." MacLeod stared at him, his expression shifting from initial confusion to outright contempt. "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Get back to your galley." "Get back to your galley," the curt dismissal echoed. Yet, the persistent observation gnawed at Lawson's mind. For 2 weeks, he dedicated himself to intricate schematics within a worn notebook, meticulously detailing innovative concepts, water-filled chambers strategically positioned around the propeller shaft, carefully designed ballast tanks, integrated against machinery mounts, and sophisticated systems for controlled flooding. He presented these revolutionary ideas to MacLeod, who brusquely waved him off. The first mate responded with a scornful chuckle, finding the notions utterly preposterous. Even Captain Bannerman, with a weary sigh, offered a paternalistic caution. "Son, your initiative is commendable, but the realm of engineering belongs to the engineers." Despite his compelling evidence, no one afforded the ship's cook the slightest measure of seriousness. On March 24th, 1943, the merchant vessel, William Eustis, made port in Liverpool, granting Lawson a mere 48 hours of precious shore leave. Driven by an unyielding conviction, he embarked upon a course of action that was not only entirely unauthorized, but carried the distinct possibility of career termination, bordering on sheer madness. He boldly strode into the imposing Western Approaches Command headquarters, demanding an audience with an admiral regarding the pressing U-boat menace. Predictably, Tommy Lawson never reached an admiral. Instead, he found himself swiftly apprehended. 2 Royal Navy Shore Patrol officers intercepted him in the grand lobby of Derby House, the formidable Western Approaches Command headquarters. "You can't be here, mate," one of them asserted, firmly grasping his arm. "This is a restricted military facility." Lawson, undeterred, insisted, "I need to talk to someone about convoy noise. I have an idea." The officer's response was dismissive. "Everyone's got ideas, Yank. Clear off." As the officers began to escort the determined cook from the premises, a commanding voice resonated from across the expansive lobby. "Wait." The speaker was Commander Peter Gretton, a remarkably young 29-year-old Royal Navy officer who had already amassed 2 arduous years commanding escort groups. He had just returned from the harrowing ordeal of Convoy ONS-5, a devastating engagement during which he had tragically lost 13 merchant ships to relentless German wolf packs. His countenance betrayed profound exhaustion, a simmering fury, and a palpable desperation for any conceivable advantage against the insidious U-boat threat. "What did you say about convoy noise?" Gretton inquired, his voice cutting through the lobby's hushed tension. "Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic." Lawson proceeded to articulate his fundamental observation, the astonishing phenomenon of a sinking ship suddenly falling silent, and his conceptual leap regarding water's capacity to dampen machinery vibration. Gretton listened intently, arms tightly crossed, his expression a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. When Lawson concluded, the commander's initial reaction was incredulous. "That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard this month. Water inside a ship is called sinking." Lawson, unfazed, countered, "Not if you control it. Small isolated chambers positioned around the propeller shaft, bearing directly against the engine mounts. You're not flooding the entire ship. You're simply creating acoustic insulation." Gretton was poised to dismiss the audacious notion entirely, when he abruptly paused, a flicker of something new in his eyes. "Say that again," he commanded. "Acoustic insulation. Water absorbs vibration far more effectively than air." "If you position water-filled chambers against," Gretton interjected, "I know what acoustic insulation is." His expression underwent a profound transformation. "Come with me," he stated, a new resolve in his tone. The following day, March 25th, 1943, found them at HM Dockyard, Liverpool. Gretton led Lawson to the corvette HMS Sunflower, a vessel currently undergoing repairs in dry dock. "If this works, and that's a truly colossal if, we'll test it here, on a small scale. Absolute discretion is paramount. No one needs to be privy to this," Gretton declared, emphasizing the clandestine nature of their endeavor. Over the course of 3 arduous days, Lawson, Gretton, and the Sunflower's dedicated engineer, Lieutenant James Whitby, painstakingly jury-rigged a rudimentary prototype. They ingeniously welded empty oil drums around the corvette's propeller shaft housing, subsequently filling them with seawater. To simulate the critical effect of water weight against the engine mounts, they strategically positioned sandbags. The contraption was undeniably crude, aesthetically displeasing, and, according to every established regulation within the Royal Navy, entirely unauthorized and highly illegal. March 28, 1943, marked the day of their inaugural test. The HMS Sunflower cautiously motored out into the tranquil waters of the Mersey River at a deliberately low speed. A submarine, HMS Trespasser, covertly participating in this unsanctioned experiment, submerged 500 yards away, its sensitive hydrophones actively monitoring the surroundings. Lawson stood on Sunflower's deck, his breath held in a tense anticipation that bordered on agony. Trespasser's captain soon surfaced, signaling a disheartening report. "Heard you clear as day. Engine noise. Propeller cavitation. Same as always." It was a resounding failure. "Told you it was bloody stupid," Lieutenant Whitby muttered, his cynicism seemingly vindicated. Yet, amid the disappointment, Lawson's keen observational skills detected a crucial flaw. "We filled the drums when the ship was in dry dock. They're not full now. They've drained through the seams. We need to seal them. Make them watertight," he explained, his voice quiet but firm. Gretton ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "If the Admiralty discovers I'm modifying a warship without authorization, I'll be court-martialed." Lawson, however, delivered a powerful, understated retort. If the Admiralty finds out U-boats are sinking 20 ships a week because we're too proud to test a cook's idea, we lose the war." Gretton stared at him for a long, agonizing moment, weighing the immense stakes. 3 more days, he finally conceded, his voice heavy with the gravity of the decision. Then this experiment ends. Driven by an acute sense of urgency, they toiled relentlessly, working around the clock. Their efforts focused on refining the prototype, meticulously welding robust, hermetically sealed steel chambers. They further enhanced the system by incorporating water-filled rubber bladders, strategically positioned against the engine mounts to maximize their dampening effect. Through these ingenious modifications, they effectively created what naval engineers would, in due course, officially term liquid acoustic dampening. On April 2, 1943, the moment for the second, pivotal test arrived. The HMS Sunflower motored out, this time at full speed, into the vast expanse of the open sea. The HMS Trespasser submerged a full 1,000 yards away, its hydrophones once again active. Minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. No signal. Eventually, Trespasser surfaced, its captain signaling an astonishing report. "We lost you at 400 yards. Hydrophones picked up nothing but ambient ocean noise." Gretton's face drained of color, utterly stunned. "Say that again." "At 400 yards you disappeared. Whatever you did to that ship, it works." Lawson, overwhelmed by a surge of relief and vindication, closed his eyes. His hands trembled uncontrollably. It worked. The following day, April 3, 1943, found Commander Gretton requesting an emergency meeting with Rear Admiral Max Horton, the formidable Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches, in the austere Admiralty boardroom in London. Gretton brought Lawson with him, a decision that caused considerable consternation and horror among the Admiral's rigid staff. "A merchant cook," an aide whispered, scandalized by the breach of protocol. Within the hallowed confines of the Admiralty boardroom, Horton, a legendary submariner renowned for his exploits in World War I, entered the room, accompanied by 3 other senior officers, and, notably, Dr. Harold Burris, the very naval architect who had previously dismissed the concept of acoustic dampening as an impossibility. Gretton commenced his presentation, detailing the astounding test results. Hydrophone detection range reduced from 12 miles to 400 yards, a 97% reduction in acoustic signature. The room erupted in a cacophony of disbelief and outrage. "This is preposterous," Dr. Burris snapped, his voice laced with indignation. "You've conducted unauthorized modifications to a Royal Navy vessel based on the suggestion of a cook." Gretton, undaunted, fired back, "A cook who understands acoustics better than your entire department." "Commander, you're out of line," barked Captain Edmund Rushbrook, the Director of Naval Intelligence. This kind of reckless experimentation could compromise... "Compromise what?" Gretton forcefully interrupted. "Our current system of letting U-boats hear us from 50 miles away? That system's working brilliantly, sir." Admiral Horton, with a calm, deliberate raise of his hand, commanded silence, instantly restoring order to the agitated room. He then turned his steely gaze towards Lawson. "Explain it to me simply," he instructed. Lawson stood, acutely aware of the immense pressure and the extraordinary circumstance of a 28-year-old American merchant seaman addressing the most powerful naval commanders in Britain. "Sir," he began, his voice steady despite the apprehension, "ship machinery inherently creates vibration. That vibration then travels through the hull structure directly into the surrounding water. Water, critically, absorbs vibration far more efficiently than either air or steel. Therefore, if you strategically position water-filled chambers against critical components like propeller shafts and engine mounts, you effectively create barriers that prevent sound from reaching the vast expanse of the ocean. It fundamentally violates basic engineering principles, Doctor. Burris vehemently insisted, his objections unwavering. Water inside a ship's structure inevitably creates significant weight distribution problems, severe stability issues, and rampant corrosion. Lawson calmly interjected, offering a precise correction. Water in sealed chambers, sir. Positioned specifically for acoustic dampening, not for uncontrolled flooding. And we have tested it. It definitively works. Burris scoffed dismissively. One test, he derided, conducted under highly controlled conditions in a river with a cooperative, friendly submarine. Hardly conclusive evidence. Admiral Horton leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful, signaling a shift from debate to serious consideration. What would it realistically take to retrofit an entire convoy? He inquired. Captain Rushbrook threw his hands up in exasperation. Admiral, you cannot be serious. This monumental undertaking would necessitate modifying hundreds of ships, diverting critical resources from other vital areas, and installing unproven technology based solely on the word of... Based on verifiable test results, Gretton forcefully interrupted, his voice resonating with conviction. Based on the undeniable fact that in March alone, we tragically lost 567,000 tons of shipping because U-boats heard us approaching. Based on the stark reality that if we fail to implement something radically different, we will lose this war by autumn. A profound, heavy silence descended upon the room, the gravity of Gretton's words settling over everyone present. Dr. Burris, after a moment of careful consideration, spoke cautiously. Admiral, even if this concept possesses some theoretical merit, its practical implementation is, regrettably, impossible. We would be faced with the Herculean task of retrofitting 2,400 merchant ships. Our dockyards are already operating at maximum capacity. The precious steel required is desperately needed for the construction of essential escort vessels. We are looking at a minimum of 6 weeks per ship, which means... It doesn't take 6 weeks, Lawson interjected quietly, his voice cutting through the technical assessment. Every head in the room immediately turned towards him. Mr. Lawson, Admiral Horton commanded, explain. The prototype on Sunflower took a mere 3 days to install, Lawson clarified. It is not complex engineering. You are simply welding sealed chambers around existing structures and filling them with water. Any competent dockyard crew can execute this. Any ship's engineer can easily maintain it. And crucially, you don't need to retrofit every single ship immediately, just enough to rigorously test its efficacy in actual convoy operations. Captain Rushbrook leaned forward, his final objection laced with a desperate urgency. And if it fails? If we divert precious resources to this experiment, and it proves ineffective in combat conditions, we will have squandered weeks that we simply do not have. If we don't test it, Gretton countered, his voice resolute, we have already lost. Admiral Horton rose from his chair, a silent command that instantly prompted everyone else to stand. The Admiral walked deliberately to the window, his gaze fixed on the distant, flowing Thames. Finally, He turned back to face the assembled officers. "Commander Gretton, you will personally oversee the retrofit of 6 merchant ships in convoy on 184, which is scheduled to depart Liverpool in precisely 8 days. Mr. Lawson, you will supervise the installation process and train the engineers responsible. Dr. Burris, you will provide all necessary technical support, even if you remain convinced that this entire endeavor is insane. If it works, we will implement this technology fleet-wide. If it fails, Gretton, you will spend the remainder of this war commanding a minesweeper in the remote Orkney Islands. Is that clear?" "Crystal, sir," Gretton responded, his voice firm. Horton then looked directly at Lawson. "Mr. Lawson, I confess I do not know if you are a genius or a madman, but what I do know is that we are utterly desperate. Do not make me regret this decision." Lawson swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. "I won't, sir," he pledged. The moment was fraught with unspoken tension as Lawson, facing a superior, managed a difficult swallow. His resolute response, "I won't, sir," echoed a firm commitment, underscoring a pivotal decision that would soon unfold, hinting at significant implications. Between April 11th and 18th, 1943, within the bustling confines of H.M. Dockyard in Liverpool, an extraordinary transformation was undertaken on a select group of 6 merchant vessels. These included the SS Daniel Webster, SS James Herod, SS John Davenport, SS Samuel Eliot, SS Benjamin Kidd, and notably Lawson's own assignment, the SS William Eustace. The implementation of the new system was remarkably straightforward in its design. Skilled teams meticulously welded cylindrical steel chambers, each precisely 24 inches in diameter and filled with seawater, strategically around the crucial propeller shaft housings. Concurrently, water-filled rubber bladders were carefully positioned against the engine mounts and steamline supports to absorb vibrations. This ingenious addition contributed a total of 18 tons of weight to each ship, with the entire installation process consuming a mere 64 hours per vessel. Despite the apparent simplicity, a palpable skepticism permeated the naval engineering circles. One engineer was overheard remarking with a touch of cynicism, "It looks like someone jury-rigged a plumbing system into the engine room," a sentiment not entirely unfounded given the unconventional nature of the setup. However, the indisputable results from subsequent hydrophone tests silenced all doubts. Prior to these innovative modifications, the acoustic signature of a standard Liberty ship could be detected at a considerable distance of 11.7 miles. Following the installation of the dampening system, this detection range dramatically plummeted to an astonishing 0.4 miles, rendering the vessels an incredible 29 times quieter. On April 22, 1943, Convoy on 184 embarked from the port of Liverpool, a formidable assembly comprising 43 merchant ships, organized into 9 distinct columns. This vital maritime procession was vigilantly escorted by a protective screen of 6 corvettes and 2 destroyers. The 6 vessels that had undergone the experimental acoustic modifications were strategically dispersed throughout this vast formation. 2 were positioned within the starboard columns, 2 in the port columns, and the remaining pair occupied central positions. Crucially, the convoy commodore remained entirely unaware of the clandestine experiment underway, ensuring that any potential U-boat engagements would serve as an authentic, unadulterated trial under actual combat conditions. Meanwhile, German naval intelligence, ever vigilant, had successfully monitored the convoy's departure and in response dispatched a formidable force of 37 U-boats, deploying them in patrol lines across the anticipated transatlantic route, poised for an intercept. We invite you to stay with us and watch the conclusion of this compelling narrative. Your support, through a like and subscription, would be greatly appreciated. Please also consider sharing your thoughts on this video's topic and letting us know where you are watching from in the comments section below. 3 days later, on April 25, 1943, in the desolate expanse of the mid-Atlantic, at precisely 2:14 a.m., Captain Lieutenant Herbert Lowes was intently scrutinizing his navigational charts aboard U-264. His hydrophone operator, who had been diligently monitoring convoy sounds for a full 6 hours, reported a perplexing anomaly. Contact weakening, on original bearing 290 but signal intermittent. Some ships very loud, some almost silent. Lowes's brow furrowed in confusion. Intermittent? That's impossible. Either you hear a convoy or you don't, he retorted, expressing his disbelief at the unprecedented report. The operator, however, persisted, explaining, "Yes, but I'm tracking multiple signatures. Some ships clear at 40 kilometers. Others disappear at 5 kilometers, highlighting the utterly baffling and inconsistent acoustic profile emanating from the approaching formation. Driven by this perplexing auditory data, Lowes promptly commanded U-264 to ascend to periscope depth. Peering through the optical instrument, he visually confirmed the presence of the convoy. Yet an undeniable discrepancy persisted. His hydrophones, by all conventional understanding, ought to have been registering the distinct acoustic signatures of all 43 vessels. Instead, he was only able to track 27, leading to the initial startling conclusion that 16 ships were acoustically imperceptible. A rapid reevaluation clarified the situation. Not 16, but precisely 6 ships were genuinely acoustically invisible. The other 10 were merely beyond the effective range of hydrophone detection. The crucial insight was that 6 specific ships, interspersed within the convoy, were emitting virtually no acoustic signature whatsoever. Faced with this unprecedented challenge, Lowes made a critical strategic decision, one that would inadvertently safeguard countless Allied lives. He resolved to focus his targeting exclusively on those vessels whose acoustic presence was clearly discernible. The vessels equipped with the pioneering acoustic dampening system, which rendered them quieter even than the ambient sounds of the open ocean, successfully eluded the predatory wolf pack. 2 days later, on April 27, 1943, approximately 600 miles west of the Irish coast, U-boat Wolfpack Group Mesa finally established contact with Convoy on 184. What ensued was a protracted and relentless series of assaults spanning over 18 hours, during which the German submarines tragically succeeded in sinking 9 merchant ships. The toll was devastating. 3,200 brave men found themselves adrift in lifeboats, and a staggering 47,000 tons of invaluable cargo now lay submerged on the ocean floor. Yet amidst this grim ledger of loss, a profoundly significant statistic emerged. Among the 9 ships that succumbed to the enemy attacks, precisely 0 were the modified vessels. The 6 ships fortified with Lawson's innovative acoustic dampening system traversed the perilous waters completely unscathed, a testament to their newfound stealth. Upon the arrival of Convoy on 184 in New York, on May 7, 1943, Commander Gretton promptly dispatched an urgent signal to London. His message unequivocally stated, "Modified vessels showed 0 enemy engagement despite comparable positions within convoy formation. Acoustic dampening effective under combat conditions. recommend immediate fleet-wide implementation. This concise report underscored the resounding success of the experimental system, validating its efficacy in the crucible of real-world naval warfare and advocating for its swift, comprehensive adoption across the entire fleet. Just 5 days later, on May 12, 1943, Admiral T.H. formally commissioned a comprehensive statistical analysis to quantify the impact of the new technology. The Western Approaches Command diligently compiled and processed the pertinent data. Their findings revealed a stark contrast in March 1943, prior to the widespread application of acoustic dampening. The average U-boat detection range for Allied convoys stood at a considerable 11.4 nautical miles. During this period, convoy ships subjected to wolf pack engagements suffered an alarming 31% loss rate, while the average U-boat loss per convoy engagement was a modest 1.2 submarines. However, the period spanning from May to July 1943, following the extensive implementation of the dampening system, presented dramatically different figures. The average U-boat detection range plummeted to an astonishing 0.6 nautical miles. Concurrently, the rate of convoy ships sunk per wolf-pack engagement sharply decreased to a mere 4 times just 7%. And conversely, U-boat losses per convoy engagement soared to an impressive 4.8 submarines. These statistical revelations were nothing short of astonishing. The implementation of acoustic dampening had effectively curtailed Allied ship losses by an astounding 85%, while simultaneously escalating U-boat losses by a staggering 400%. Submarines, which had once been able to pinpoint and track convoys from many miles distant, were now compelled to close to within a mere half-mile before detection was possible. This drastically reduced proximity brought them squarely within the effective operational ranges of ASDIC, radar, and even visual observation. Consequently, the notorious wolf pack tactics, which relied heavily on coordinated attacks, disintegrated entirely, rendered ineffective because the submarines were simply unable to acoustically locate and synchronize their assaults on targets they could no longer hear. The month of May 1943 etched itself into German naval history as Black May, a period of calamitous setbacks. During this critical juncture, Allied forces achieved a decisive victory, sinking an unprecedented 41 U-boats, a devastating loss representing 25% of Germany's entire operational submarine fleet. In stark contrast, Allied merchant ship losses plummeted to only 58 vessels, a significant improvement compared to the 96 ships lost in March. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, the beleaguered commander of the U-boat fleet, recorded his profound dismay in his war diary on May 24, 1943, lamenting, "The enemy has achieved technical supremacy in acoustic detection, which has robbed U-boats of their most effective weapon, surprise attack. Convoys have become nearly invisible to hydrophone surveillance. We can no longer predict attack positions. The old certainties have vanished." His words articulated the profound shift in naval warfare dynamics. Further corroborating the profound impact of this new technology, a captured German hydrophone operator from U-954, a submarine tragically sunk on May 19, 1943, recounted his bewildering experiences to British interrogators. He confessed, "We could not understand what happened. Sometimes we heard convoy sounds from a great distance. Other times, ships were practically on top of us before we detected them. It was as if the ocean had become silent." This first-hand account vividly illustrated the disorienting and unprecedented challenge faced by German submariners, who were suddenly confronted with an unpredictable and baffling acoustic environment. By July 1943, the widespread adoption of the acoustic dampening system had accelerated, with a remarkable 847 Allied merchant ships having received the crucial modifications. The efficiency of the installation process dramatically improved, with crews perfecting their techniques, reducing the time required to just 48 hours per vessel. Economically, the system proved to be an astute investment, costing merely $20,000 per ship, which represented less than 1/10 the expense of constructing a brand new vessel. The period from May through December 1943 witnessed a precipitous decline in Allied merchant ship losses, totaling 329 vessels, a significant reduction from the 729 ships lost in the preceding 8 months. Concurrently, a staggering 237 U-boats were obliterated during this same time frame. It is estimated that this innovation directly led to the preservation of approximately 4,200 merchant seamen's lives, individuals who would otherwise have perished in the relentless sinkings. While the Battle of the Atlantic was far from over, indeed, it would rage on until May 1945, a decisive turning point had undeniably been reached. The U-boats, once the formidable hunters of the high seas, had now become the hunted, their tactical advantage irrevocably eroded. Reflecting on the pivotal moments of the war, Admiral Sir Max Horton, in his 1946 memoir, penned a profound tribute asserting, "Among the many innovations that secured victory in the Atlantic, radar, HFDF, lee lights, escort carriers, none were as simple or as effective as Lawson's acoustic dampening system. A cook with no engineering training solved a problem that baffled our best scientists." His words underscored the remarkable ingenuity of an unexpected source. Similarly, Commander Peter Gretton, in his illuminating 1964 book, Convoy Escort Commander, offered his own poignant assessment. "Tommy Lawson never fired a shot in anger. He never commanded a ship. But he saved more lives than any captain in the Royal Navy. His genius was seeing what everyone else missed, that the solution wasn't more technology, but better use of the ocean itself." Both distinguished officers unequivocally recognized Lawson's unparalleled contribution, highlighting his unique insight that transcended conventional engineering approaches. Between April 1943 and the triumphant conclusion of the war in May 1945, a monumental undertaking saw 2,047 Allied merchant ships, equipped with Lawson's revolutionary acoustic dampening systems, alongside modifications to 164 Royal Navy escort vessels. The sheer scale of this effort required a total of 51,000 tons of steel, a surprisingly modest amount, equating to less than what would be needed to construct just 7 Liberty ships. The entire project incurred a total cost of $622 million, which, when adjusted for inflation, translates to approximately $400 million in 2024. Such was its proven efficacy that the system was adopted as standard equipment on all U.S. Navy surface vessels in the post-war era, steadily evolving into what is now known as the Prairie Masker Noise Reduction System, a technology that remains a cornerstone of American warships today. While contemporary Prairie Masker systems employ compressed air bubbles rather than the static water chambers of Lawson's original design, the fundamental principle endures: to generate effective acoustic barriers that effectively mask the operational noise of ship machinery. The unassuming hero, Thomas Patrick Lawson, was formally recognized for his extraordinary contribution with the British Empire Medal in June 1945, presented during a modest ceremony held in London. True to his humble nature, he steadfastly declined all requests for interviews and shunned any form of publicity. When approached by the New York Times for an interview in 1947, he graciously refused, famously remarking, "I just noticed something and mentioned it. Other people did the real work." Following the cessation of hostilities, Lawson quietly returned to Boston, where he established a small diner in the Dorchester neighborhood. He married, started a family, and became a father to 3 children, never publicly discussing his profound impact on the Battle of the Atlantic. His wife, remarkably, remained unaware of the full scope of his wartime contributions until 1978, when a diligent British naval historian successfully located him for a book detailing innovations in convoy operations. Thomas Patrick Lawson passed away in 1991 at the age of 76. His obituary, published in the Boston Globe, respectfully described him as a retired restaurant owner and a veteran of the Merchant Marine. Conspicuously absent from the tribute was any mention of his groundbreaking acoustic dampening system, the 4,200 lives he undeniably saved, or the extraordinary fact that a high school dropout, armed with nothing more than a notebook, had fundamentally revolutionized naval warfare. At his funeral, a poignant scene unfolded as 3 elderly British naval officers attended, men who had served on convoy escorts in 1943 and whose survival was directly attributable to U-boats being unable to detect their ships. One of these grateful veterans tenderly placed a handwritten note into Lawson's casket, a simple yet profound message that read, "Because of you, we came home," a silent testament to his enduring legacy. The enduring lesson embedded within Lawson's remarkable story was formally recognized in 2011 when the U.S. Naval Academy incorporated his narrative into its esteemed leadership curriculum. The accompanying summary encapsulated the profound insight. Innovation doesn't require credentials. It requires observation, courage, and the willingness to challenge expert consensus. Lawson succeeded not because he was trained in acoustics, but because he paid attention when no one else did. The most dangerous phrase in warfare isn't, "That's impossible." It's, "We've always done it this way." This inclusion serves as a powerful reminder that true ingenuity often emerges from unexpected places, challenging established norms and fostering critical thinking. Even today, every single surface warship within the United States Navy is equipped with sophisticated Prairie Masker acoustic reduction systems, direct, technological descendants of the simple water-filled chambers that a merchant cook first conceptualized and sketched in a humble notebook 8 decades ago. This enduring legacy serves as a potent reminder that, at times, the crucial distinction between ultimate defeat and resounding victory hinges upon the keen observation of a single individual who perceives what others overlook, coupled with the profound courage to articulate that insight